It was a normal morning at Fort Trident, a big military base known for its strict security. The sun was rising, and the guards at the gate were starting their shift. Among them was Private First Class Darren Cole, a new soldier, fresh out of training. He was just 21 years old, and this was only his third day on the job. Darren stood straight at Gate 3, wearing his clean uniform and holding his rifle like he had been taught. He had studied all the rules. He memorized every security protocol. Check every ID. No ID, no entry. These words were still echoing in his head. He wanted to prove himself. He didn't want to mess up. Gate 3 was not as busy as the main gate. It was for special vehicles and high-clearance personnel. Most people who used this gate were VIPs. Darren knew this, so he was extra alert. Around 7:30 a.m., a black SUV pulled up to the gate. The windows were tinted, so Darren couldn't see who was inside. He stepped forward, raised his hand, and signaled the driver to stop. The window rolled down slowly. A woman sat in the driver's seat. She wore black sunglasses and simple, casual clothes, jeans, and a dark jacket. No uniform, no name tag, no ID badge. "Good morning, soldier," she said calmly. "Good morning, ma'am," Darren replied, trying to sound confident. "I need to see your military ID." The woman nodded slowly. "I don't have it on me, but I'm expected. Please open the gate." Darren's heart skipped a beat. No ID? He couldn't let her through. That was against the rules. Still, she didn't look nervous. In fact, she looked relaxed, like she owned the place. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I can't let you in without proper identification," he said, trying to stay professional. "I understand," she said. "But trust me, I belong here." Darren felt confused. Most people who forgot their ID got nervous or angry. This woman was different. She wasn't begging. She wasn't yelling. She was calm, like she had nothing to prove. But Darren stayed firm. "I'm going to have to call my superior," he said. "Go ahead," she replied. Darren stepped into the small booth next to the gate and picked up the radio. "Control, this is Gate 3, he said. "There's a woman here claiming she's expected. No ID. Civilian clothes. Says her name is..." He paused. "Ma'am, your name?" "Commander Rhodes," she said. Darren blinked. Commander? She didn't look like any commander he had seen. He didn't say anything, but continued on the radio. "She says her name is Commander Rhodes." There was silence on the other end for a few seconds. Then a sharp voice came through. "Did you say Commander Rhodes?" "Yes, sir," Darren replied. "Open the gate immediately." Darren froze. "Sir, I said open the gate. And apologize." Darren slowly stepped out of the booth. His face had turned pale. He walked back to the SUV and opened the gate with shaking hands. "I'm very sorry, ma'am," he said quickly. Commander Rhodes took off her sunglasses. Her eyes were sharp, but she wasn't angry. She looked at Darren for a moment. "You followed protocol. That's a good thing," she said. Darren was too embarrassed to speak. "But next time, take a closer look," she added. She gave him a small nod and drove through the gate. Darren stood there, heart pounding, watching the black SUV disappear down the road. He had just refused entry to a top military commander, someone powerful, someone important. He felt stupid, but at the same time, she didn't shout at him or punish him. She had even said he did the right thing. Still, Darren couldn't help but wonder, who was this woman really? And why did the control room panic when they heard her name? That morning, Darren Cole learned something big. In the military, not everything is what it seems. And sometimes, the most powerful people don't look powerful at all. Commander Lena Rhodes did not look like someone who led the world's most dangerous special operations team. As her black SUV rolled deeper into Fort Trident, she sat calmly, almost silently, as if she carried no weight on her shoulders. But the truth was the opposite. She carried more than most soldiers could ever imagine. Behind her quiet eyes lived years of classified missions, sleepless nights, and choices that never left her mind. But she had learned to hide everything behind a simple jacket and a calm smile. To most people, she looked like just another visitor. And that was exactly how she wanted it. Back at Gate 3, Darren Cole watched the SUV disappear, feeling like he had just stepped into something far bigger than himself. He could still hear her voice in his head, calm, steady, and full of authority, even though she never raised it. He didn't know who she really was, but he knew one thing. She was not someone ordinary. Meanwhile, Commander Rhodes drove toward the restricted compound, a section of the base that even many officers had never seen. As she passed the final checkpoint, the guards there didn't ask for ID. They simply saluted. She nodded in return, not slowing down. Inside the car, she finally allowed herself a tiny smile as she remembered the young soldier who had stopped her. He has potential, she thought. Strict, but not arrogant. She respected people who followed rules. It showed discipline. But she also knew that the best soldiers learned to see beyond what was written on paper. They learned to read situations, to understand people, to recognize hidden dangers. She wondered if Darren would ever learn that. When she reached the concealed hangar, a tall figure stepped out to greet her. Chief Petty Officer Grant Hale, her second in command. He was a quiet mountain of muscle with years of battle behind him. "You're late," Hale said, though his tone showed no annoyance. "Had a small delay at Gate 3, Rhodes replied. Hale raised an eyebrow. "Trouble?" "Not exactly. A young guard doing his job a little too well." She smirked. For a moment, Hale looked confused. Then understanding hit him. "You didn't show your ID again, did you?" "It's good to test the system," she said. "Keeps everyone sharp." Hale shook his head. "You enjoy this too much." "Maybe," she said lightly. "But we both know that real threats don't walk around wearing labels." They walked together toward the inner operations room. A heavy steel door slid open with a hiss. Inside, screens covered the walls, showing maps, satellite images, and encrypted messages. Several operators stood at their stations, their eyes snapping to attention the moment Rhodes entered. "Commander on deck," someone shouted. The room went silent. Then every person stood straighter. Respect filled the air, not the forced kind, but the earned kind. Rhodes gave a small nod. "At ease. Brief me." Hale stepped forward and tapped a screen. A series of photos appeared. Unfamiliar faces, locations across continents, coded names. Something serious was happening. But even as Rhodes listened, part of her mind returned to Darren Cole. Not because of the mistake, but because mistakes from rookies were normal. What was unusual was his determination. His posture. His refusal to be intimidated. Most new soldiers froze or relaxed too quickly when they saw confidence in someone else. But Darren hadn't. He had stood his ground, even when the situation felt wrong. That meant he had something rare, instinct. Hale noticed her distraction. "Commander? Something on your mind?" She shook her head lightly. "Just thinking. About Gate 3? Maybe. Should I file a report on the guard?" "No," Rhodes said firmly. "He did his job, and he might be worth watching." Hale gave her a slow nod. When Lena Rhodes saw potential in someone, she was rarely wrong. Far across the base, Darren was still replaying the scene in his mind, unaware that the woman he had stopped was now discussing him in a top-secret operations room. He didn't know her name carried weight in every branch of the military. He didn't know she led a team that enemies feared but had never seen. But he would. Soon. Because Commander Rhodes had already made up her mind. The rookie who dared to stop her would not be forgotten. Before the world ever whispered the name Commander Lena Rhodes, she had been just another quiet recruit in a crowded training camp. No one expected her to rise. No one imagined she would one day lead Phantom Viper, the most skilled and most feared SEAL unit ever created. But greatness often grows in silence, and Lena Rhodes had mastered silence long before she mastered anything else. Back at Fort Trident, while she prepared for the briefing with her team, Darren Cole sat in the guard shack, still shaken from that morning. He kept repeating her name in his mind. Commander Rhodes. The name sounded important. Heavy. Dangerous. But to Darren, she didn't look like a legend. No medals. No loud footsteps. No aggressive attitude. She looked like a calm woman who didn't need to prove anything. And maybe that was what scared him most. The people who didn't need to show their power were usually the ones who had the most of it. Darren turned towards Sergeant Miller, his shift partner. "Do you know her?" "Commander Rhodes." Miller looked up from his clipboard. "Everyone knows her," he said quietly. "But most people never see her." "She's famous?" Darren asked. Miller snorted. "Not famous. More like whispered about. You'll never see her face on posters. You won't find her wearing shiny medals. But if she walks into a room, generals stand up." Darren blinked. That didn't make sense. But why? What did she do? Miller lowered his voice. "Things we will never be cleared to know." Just hearing that sent chills down Darren's spine. Meanwhile, across the base, Commander Rhodes entered a smaller, private room connected to the operations center. Inside was a long table full of files, the kind that were sealed with thick red tape. Only a handful of people in the world had permission to open them. She was one of them. As she flipped through reports and scanned mission updates, the memories of the past returned to her. Not the glory, there was never any glory, but the moments that shaped her. She remembered the freezing mountains of Kazakhstan, where her team rescued diplomats who had been held hostage for 9 days. She remembered the blazing deserts where her squad dismantled a terror ring before it could attack 5 different cities. She remembered the ocean nights, when Phantom Viper swam kilometers underwater with no light, no sound, only trust. But the world never heard about those missions. They were too dangerous, too politically sensitive, too complicated for public news. So instead, the world heard nothing. And Lena preferred it that way. Her unit was designed for one purpose: to go where no one else could, to do what no one else dared, and to disappear before the world knew they were there. Most military units were known by their symbols. Phantom Viper was known by its silence. Back in the guard post, Darren continued to think. His curiosity grew stronger. Who was she really? Why did she hide her identity? And why did the entire base seem to shift when her name was mentioned? He opened the base intranet, searching for information. But the moment he typed Rhodes, the system blocked him. Access denied. Clearance level required. He stared at the screen. A normal commander would not require such security. That meant she was something else, something far above anything he had imagined. Inside the briefing room, Commander Rhodes joined her team. Each member of Phantom Viper stood as she entered, quiet but powerful figures dressed in plain clothes. They came from different backgrounds: intelligence, recon, demolitions, linguistics, cyber warfare. But they shared one thing: unquestioned loyalty to her. "Commander," one of them said, "we're ready." Rhodes took her seat at the head of the table. Her voice remained calm, but sharp enough to cut through steel. "Then let's begin." The team leaned forward. Maps lit up on the screens, showing a developing threat overseas. Rhodes gave precise instructions, her mind moving faster than the satellite images. Her team listened without blinking. Every word she said mattered. Every command shaped their survival. But while she planned for the mission ahead, she still thought of Darren, the rookie at Gate 3 who unknowingly challenged a woman capable of starting or stopping wars. There was something in him she couldn't ignore. Potential, courage, instinct, qualities that Phantom Viper needed. And she had decided she would test him again, soon. The sun had almost reached the top of the sky when Darren Cole was called into the administrative office. He walked quickly, nervous with every step. He kept thinking about what had happened that morning. Maybe he was in trouble. Maybe refusing entry to a high-ranking commander would ruin his career. The voice on the radio had sounded sharp, not angry, but serious. Darren had never heard that tone before. Inside the office, Captain Reynolds was waiting. A tall, older man with silver hair and a permanent look of exhaustion. Reynolds was known for being firm but fair. He looked up as Darren entered and gave a small nod. "Private Cole," he said, not unkindly. "Yes, sir," Darren replied, standing straight. "I've been told you stopped a woman at Gate 3 earlier today. A Commander Rhodes." Darren's heart jumped. "Yes, sir. She didn't have ID, and I." Reynolds held up a hand. "You don't need to explain. You followed protocol. That's what we train you for. No ID, no entry." Darren nodded, but his throat was dry. "However," the captain continued, his voice dropping slightly, "you should understand something. Commander Rhodes isn't a normal officer. She doesn't move through this base the way others do. When her name comes up, you don't question it." "I didn't know, sir," Darren said quietly. "No, you didn't. And that's not your fault," Reynolds replied. "But now you do. Let me give you a small piece of advice, Cole. In this place, some people walk quietly, not because they are weak, but because they're the strongest people in the room." "Yes, sir." Reynolds leaned back in his chair and studied Darren. "Still, Rhodes said something interesting about you." Darren raised his eyebrows. "Sir, she said you were sharp, calm, not the kind to fold under pressure. She said you showed backbone." That surprised Darren more than anything else. The woman he had blocked at the gate had praised him? That didn't seem real. "She also asked for your name. Wanted to remember it," Reynolds added. Darren didn't know what to say. He just stood there, stunned. "Now, that could mean nothing," Reynolds said, picking up a folder. "Or it could mean everything. Just keep doing your job." Dismissed. Darren saluted and left the office, his mind spinning. He walked back to the guard post. But the place already felt different. The same road, the same base, the same gate, but now he knew a secret. Commander Rhodes wasn't just a powerful officer. She was something more. Something no one talked about openly. He didn't know whether to feel proud or terrified. At the same time, on the far side of the base, Rhodes stood in the open training field with her team. Phantom Viper didn't train like other units. There were no loud drills, no shouted orders. Their exercises were quiet, sharp, and exact. Everything was about control, precision. They moved like shadows. Rhodes watched them closely. They were preparing for another classified mission overseas. But her mind kept drifting back to the young soldier at Gate 3. She had seen something familiar in his eyes, a kind of discipline mixed with fire. Most rookies were either too soft or too aggressive. Darren had found a balance. He had followed rules without shaking. He had asked questions without fear. That kind of behavior couldn't be taught easily. It had to come from inside. Hale, her second-in-command, walked up beside her. "You're thinking about the gate kid again," he said with a half-smile. Rhodes didn't deny it. "He's green, but not stupid. Those are the dangerous ones," Hale joked. "Give them a few years, and they might outrank us. Or save our lives," Rhodes replied. Hale nodded. They stood in silence for a while, watching their team move like ghosts across the field. Then Rhodes spoke again. "Let's keep an eye on him." "Darren Cole?" Hale asked. "Yes. See what he's made of." Rhodes didn't smile, but there was a slight spark in her eyes. The same kind of spark that had started the legend of Phantom Viper years ago. Across the base, Darren stood at his post once more, unaware that the most elite team in the world had just taken notice of him. He still thought he had made a mistake. He didn't know that sometimes, the right mistake was exactly what someone important was waiting for. Darren Cole didn't sleep well that night. He kept seeing the gate in his dreams, the black SUV, the woman's calm face, and the moment the radio crackled with the sharp command to let her through immediately. Over and over, the scene played in his head like a loop he couldn't shut off. By morning, he had convinced himself that whatever respect Commander Rhodes had shown was just politeness. Nothing more. She was probably too busy to even remember his name. She was a commander, and he was just a gate guard. Their worlds were not the same. But Darren didn't know what was happening behind closed doors. In a conference room deep in the operations wing, Commander Rhodes sat with Colonel Briggs, the base commander, and a few high-ranking officials. On the table was a folder with Darren Cole's name printed on the front. His file had been pulled, not for punishment, but for review. Colonel Briggs spoke first. "He's young, still wet behind the ears, but clean record. Top marks in attention to protocol. Quiet, disciplined." Rhodes nodded without expression. "I don't want him promoted. I just want to see him under pressure." Briggs raised an eyebrow. "You want him tested?" "Yes," she said. Subtly. "Let's see how he thinks when the rules blur." That was all she said, and the conversation moved on. But the decision had been made. Darren's next few days were about to change, without warning and without explanation. Later that afternoon, Darren was called to report to a temporary security detail in a new section of the base. No one told him why. The assignment looked simple: monitor vehicle logs near a restricted hangar for 48 hours. It sounded dull, but Darren accepted without question. His new post had no partner. Just him, a shack, a camera feed, and a checklist. But by the second night, strange things began happening. First, a military truck arrived 2 hours earlier than scheduled. The driver wore a correct uniform but refused to show ID. Darren politely insisted. The driver grew irritated, muttered something about top-level cargo, and drove off. Later, a maintenance worker tried to enter the zone without the right clearance badge. Darren refused, again following protocol. Each time something strange happened, Darren logged it and made a quiet call to his supervisor, just like he was trained. No panic, no shouting, just clear actions. But someone was watching all of this. From a dark room inside the main building, Commander Rhodes and Hale observed the live feed from the camera above Darren's shack. They listened to his tone, watched his eyes, and studied his movements. "He stays calm," Hale said. Rhodes leaned forward. "And smart. He doesn't overreact. He doesn't try to act like a hero. He's boring," Hale said, half joking. "Good," Rhodes replied. "We don't need heroes. We need thinkers." Back at the post, Darren sat alone under the yellow glow of a single bulb. He was tired, but sharp. He wrote down his third incident of the night: a vehicle that slowed down near the hangar gate, but then drove off before approaching. He didn't know that these were all tests, controlled setups, a way to see how he handled unpredictability without breaking rules or panicking. The next morning, just as Darren was about to end his shift, a woman in a gray hoodie walked up to his post on foot. She didn't speak. She just looked at him, then at the shack, then back at him again. She had no badge, no uniform, no bag. Darren stepped out. "Ma'am, this area is restricted. Can I help you?" She said nothing. Her eyes narrowed. Then she smiled slightly and walked away. Darren didn't chase her. He picked up the radio and reported the incident. Unidentified civilian near Hangar 7. No entry made. Situation under control. He didn't know it, but the woman wasn't a civilian. She was part of Phantom Viper. The entire night had been planned. Every test, every mistake, every visitor, all arranged to push him, to measure him, to see if he cracked. He didn't. When Rhodes received the final report, she looked at it for a long moment, then closed the folder. "Let's move him," she said. Phase 2. Darren Cole had passed the first test. He just didn't know it yet. 2 days passed before Darren Cole received his next orders. A plain envelope slid under his door early in the morning. No sender, no seal, just his name typed across the front. He opened it slowly. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "Report to Training Field 9 at 0500. We're PT gear. No weapons. No questions." There was no signature. No explanation. Just that. Most new soldiers would be confused or even scared by something like this. But Darren had spent the last few days feeling like something invisible was watching him. Every mistake he avoided, every rule he followed, every weird interaction. It felt like a puzzle, and someone was holding the final piece just out of reach. Now it seemed the game was moving into a new round. At 4:50 a.m., Darren arrived at Training Field 9. It was pitch dark, the sky still asleep, and the field was completely empty. No lights, no sound, just the hum of cold wind passing through tall grass and gravel. He stood alone in silence. At exactly 5 a.m., he heard footsteps behind him. 6 people emerged from the shadows, all dressed in black workout gear. No ranks, no names. They moved like they had done this 1,000 times, every step quiet, every breath controlled. At the center of the group was Commander Rhodes. Darren's spine straightened. She didn't smile. She didn't greet him. She just stopped in front of him and spoke in a calm, flat tone. "You've been watched." Darren said nothing. "You've been tested," she continued. "You passed the first stage. Now comes the second." He opened his mouth, but Rhodes raised a hand. "No questions." She turned to her team. "Bring him in." Before Darren could speak again, one of the operatives tossed him a weighted vest. Another handed him a blindfold. "Put it on," Rhodes said. Darren obeyed. What followed next felt like a dream. He was driven somewhere. He couldn't see, but he could feel the vehicle take sharp turns. The road changed from pavement to dirt. It got colder. The air felt different. He tried to count the minutes, but it was useless. They wanted him off balance. And it was working. When the blindfold came off, he was standing in the middle of a large concrete room. No windows, just steel walls, cameras in the corners, and a faint smell of oil and sweat. It looked like a mix between a gym and a bunker. Rhodes stood in front of him again, this time with a tablet in hand. "This is a 5-day training phase," she said. "You'll sleep when we tell you, eat when we tell you, and survive, if you're lucky." Darren nodded slowly. "You won't know what's real and what's part of the test," she added. "You won't know who's your ally. Not even us." Then she handed him a card. It had only 4 words printed on it. "Watch. Think. Don't react." Before Darren could ask what it meant, the lights went out. The next 5 days were unlike anything he'd ever imagined. He was pushed to his limit. He ran obstacle courses in pitch darkness. He was given puzzles under stress, sometimes with alarms blaring in the background. He was left alone for hours, then thrown into sudden team drills with strangers he couldn't trust. One night, he was locked in a room with 2 hostages and told only one could survive. He refused to choose. Another night, a fake intruder burst in, shouting for help, claiming betrayal. Darren stayed silent, remembered the card, and waited. Every time he trusted instinct over panic, the cameras blinked green. Every time he reacted too fast, they blinked red. They were watching everything. And somewhere, behind the screens, Commander Rhodes watched too. She didn't comment. She didn't interrupt. She just observed. Every movement. Every delay, every decision Darren made. By the end of the 5th day, Darren was exhausted, bruised, but still standing. He hadn't broken. He hadn't begged. He hadn't lost control. As he stood alone in the bunker on the last day, a door opened. Rhodes walked in. This time, she did smile. "You're not perfect," she said. "But you're calm when others panic. You think when others freeze. And most important, when you don't understand the situation, you don't run from it." Darren didn't know if this meant success or failure. But then she said 4 words he didn't expect. "Welcome to the program." He had passed again, but he had no idea what came next. Darren didn't get time to celebrate. The same day he was told, "Welcome to the program," he was handed a duffel bag, a new uniform without any name or rank, and another note. "Report to Hangar 17. Midnight. Say nothing to anyone." By now, he had stopped asking questions. The rules of his old life didn't apply anymore. That night, the base was quiet. Midnight air was heavy with fog, and the moon was hiding behind clouds. Darren moved through the shadows, his new boots soft on the ground, until he reached Hangar 17. It looked abandoned. No lights, no guards, just a large metal door that creaked open with a heavy push. Inside, a group of 5 people waited, all dressed the same way. Black, plain, no insignias. One of them handed Darren an earpiece and motioned for him to put it on. No one said a word. Then Commander Rhodes appeared, walking from the back of the hangar like she had been there the whole time. She didn't greet them. She simply began. "This is not a ceremony," she said. "There are no medals here. No speeches. You are not joining a unit. You are becoming a shadow." Darren stood in line, heart steady but mind racing. "You will not wear our name," she continued. "You will not tell your families. You will not exist on paper. And if you fail in the field, no one will come looking for you." One of the others shifted uncomfortably. Darren did not move. Rhodes walked slowly in front of each person. "There are many elite teams in this world," she said. "They train harder, shoot faster, fight longer. But this team, Phantom Viper, is different. We do what others can't. We go where no one else dares. We finish what others fear to start." Then she stopped in front of Darren. "You stopped me at a gate," she said quietly, so only he could hear. "You didn't flinch. You didn't fold. That's why you're here." Then she turned to the others. "Your first assignment begins now." The hangar wall opened, revealing a narrow passage. The group followed her down into what looked like an underground tunnel. Lights flickered to life above them. Everything was metal and concrete. Cold, clean, silent. At the end of the tunnel, they entered a secure briefing room with a single screen and several chairs. Rhodes tapped a code on the wall. The screen lit up, showing satellite images, heat maps, and names Darren had never heard before. "This isn't training," she said. "This is real." A facility overseas had gone dark. A science team had stopped all communication. Signals were being blocked. Every local unit sent to investigate had vanished. The government denied any problem. But someone high up had called Phantom Viper. "We leave in 6 hours," Rhodes said. "No flags. No uniforms. If we're caught, we never existed." Each new recruit was given a packet with encrypted mission details. Darren read his slowly. His role was clear: infiltration support, recon, and tech surveillance. It felt impossible. Just 2 weeks ago, he was checking IDs at a gate. Now he was being inserted into a mission that could collapse governments. He didn't speak, didn't ask questions, didn't even look up. Rhodes noticed. Later, in the prep room, while others suited up, she walked over to Darren. "You're quiet," she said. "I'm thinking," he replied. "Good." She paused, then added, "The others still believe they're part of something big. You already understand the truth." "What truth?" Darren asked. "This isn't about being heroes," she said. "It's about being useful." Then she walked away. The flight to the operation zone was silent. No one spoke. Each recruit had their eyes closed, running through the plan in their heads. Darren sat with his hands clasped, calm on the outside. But deep down, he knew this was the start of a new life. One where every second counted. One where one mistake could mean death. He thought of his family, his old unit, the guard post at Gate 3. All of it felt like a distant memory now, because this was Phantom Viper. And in 6 hours, he'd be walking into the unknown. The helicopter flew low, silent blades slicing through cold air over a mountain range that wasn't on any public map. Below, darkness spread across the valley like a sleeping giant. No city lights, No sounds. Just a heavy, waiting silence. Inside the aircraft, Darren Cole sat between two veteran members of Phantom Viper. He had been given no call sign yet, no nickname. He was still the new one. But no one questioned his presence anymore. That meant something. Commander Rhodes stood near the exit ramp, helmet under her arm, eyes fixed on the distant ground. She looked like she wasn't just preparing for the mission. She looked like she was already in it. As they neared the landing zone, the light inside the chopper turned red. Final check. Rhodes turned and spoke into the comms, her voice calm as ever. Team drops in 90 seconds. No sound. No mistakes. Extraction in 4 hours. Stay invisible. Darren checked his gear, tightened his vest, and focused. The briefings had been tight. An abandoned research site. Possible hostiles. A missing team. No backup. Their job was simple. Get in, assess, retrieve data, and get out. But nothing ever stayed simple for long. They dropped under moonlight, one by one, landing softly in the snow-dusted field outside a tall, shadowed facility. The structure looked dead. No lights, no movement. But every member of the team could feel it. Something wasn't right. As they moved through the trees, Darren kept his eyes moving. His role tonight was surveillance support, eyes on the tech, signals, sensors. While the others breached the compound, he would monitor the perimeter, patch into old security lines, and scan for activity. They reached the side entrance. Rhodes raised a hand. The team stopped. She signaled. Darren broke off silently, circled to the nearby access point, a rusted power box half buried in snow. He dropped to one knee, opened the lid, and began his work. Seconds passed. Then a screen on his wrist pad blinked. A weak signal, buried in static, but there. He tapped into it. Cameras. Still functioning. One by one, he brought up the feeds. Most showed nothing. Empty halls, flickering lights, collapsed walls. But then he found something. Movement. A shadow. Human shape. Inside the facility. Not one of theirs. Darren tapped the mic once. Silent code. Then again. Rhodes received the signal in her earpiece. She changed course immediately, hand gestures guiding the rest of the team without a word. Inside, the air was thick. Dust, decay, and something else, something metallic. They found the first missing team in the south wing. Dead. No blood. No wounds. Just stillness. Like they had stopped breathing in the middle of a step. Rhodes didn't flinch. She kept moving. Meanwhile, Darren followed the signal deeper, jumping from camera to camera, mapping the halls. He noticed a pattern. The shadow was moving away from them. Whoever it was knew they were coming. And that meant they weren't just surviving. They were planning. Darren hesitated, then did something risky. He sent a signal spike through the old system, a flash ping, to draw the shadow's attention. It was against the rules. But it worked. The figure turned. For a split second, the camera caught its face. It wasn't hostile. It was a survivor. One of the scientists. Alive. Darren relayed the location instantly. Rhodes adjusted their route. Minutes later, they reached a lower lab and found the man. Weak, coughing, but breathing. You shouldn't be here, the scientist whispered. Rhodes knelt beside him. Why? They weren't supposed to open it, he said. We warned them. But they opened it anyway. What? The vault. The thing inside. His voice faded. Rhodes looked at Darren. He didn't need orders. He was already scanning the lab data, copying files, transferring logs. His hands moved fast, smooth, silent, just like one of them. They pulled out with the survivor and the data just before dawn. The extraction team met them at a hidden cliffside 2 kilometers west. No alarms were triggered. No enemies followed. Back at the base, as the team debriefed in silence, Rhodes handed Darren a plain black patch. No name. No logo. Just a small viper stitched into the fabric. You earned it, she said simply. Darren nodded. He didn't smile. He didn't have to. He had started as a rookie who stopped the wrong person at a gate. Now, he was part of the most invisible, lethal, and respected unit in the world. He wasn't watching anymore. He was inside the shadows now,